Hey, crypto is crashing right now, and this time is because of the problems of liquidity of the FTX exchange. Now, let me tell you a secret.
It's a secret. Shut up.
You can often see multiple red flags on a website of a company like that months or even years before they actually go bust. And for a multi-billion-dollar company, the FTX website looked scammy and surprisingly low quality. Now, why does it matter? Obviously, it's how it works, right? That's the whole UX thing. But not really, because the aesthetic usability effect, meaning things that are done with love and carefully crafted are perceived as better, is a pretty important one. Steve Jobs famously said to an engineer that he wants the motherboard inside the computer to be perfectly aligned and looking beautiful. Why? Asked the engineer, thinking that, well, nobody's gonna see it. And Steve Jobs replied, because I will know it's there. And think what you want about Apple. Attention to detail and design prowess, even with some of those fails, still is a very strong point and very deeply rooted in the company culture. And companies like that are more trustworthy because you know that they care about every little detail. So let's go back to the FTX website, and I'm gonna tell you why exactly I would never create an account there, even before knowing all that we know now. Let's start with the obvious. If a multi-billion-dollar company has a shitty website like that, it means that they don't care about the entirety of the user experience. Because obviously they do have the money, or they had the money, to hire the best designers and to deliver an amazing experience. Yet they chose not to. Obviously, design is not the only factor to judge a project by. A scam website can hire a great designer and fool you that way. So it's important for you to research things on multiple levels, but design is definitely one of them. So let me walk you through the FTX website, noticing and pointing out a couple of things that I believe are true red flags, showing pretty low quality of execution. And if you see a new exchange pop out with similar issues, then yeah, it's likely a scam too.
Okay, right from the start, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different font sizes. There is a message about using Google Chrome with a button that kind of hides under the screen. The fonts are not aligned well. There are some pretty crazy misalignments in some of the controls, like this one. The buttons look weird, like not clickable at all. And yeah, there's like 20 different font sizes on just this one screen alone. I actually took 5 minutes and redesigned their header. First of all, I cleaned it up, I increased the spacing. Their logo is using sharp corners, so I made the corners on the buttons and the search field sharp as well, because it should all be consistent. I also tweaked the hamburger icon and also placed it exactly under the logo and made it into a shape that looks a little bit like that F. Then there are some different font sizes and some more consistency, plus a lot more white space that makes those things actually more readable even with a smaller font. And this is of course just the beginning. This is what I could do in 5 minutes, and they didn't take the time to do even minimal stuff like that. Scrolling a little bit down to that conversion calculator, basically it looks like everything is out of place. There are X's to remove something that are in the middle, which is complete nonsense. And if you go into that, you only see that there are those two cryptocurrencies predefined, so you need to remove something. But when you remove something, then the quantity also gets removed, so you get stuck with just two fields. And yeah, this just kind of everything looks weird. Even the controls here for changing the quantity are completely not aligned to the center of the element. And then in here, the icons are way too high. There is not enough white space on those boxes, so everything seems cramped and yeah, not looking that great. And as a cherry on top, there is a different line thickness in some of the icons, especially in the last one, FTX Pay. The lines are way thicker than in the other icons, plus they're all a little bit too complex to even be used on a website. It all looks very messy here. And this part for a multi-billion-dollar company looks like a pretty generic graphics design that basically didn't require any thought going into it. This is kind of like cryptocurrency 101, something you find in Google and then replicate. And then going to the subpage, you clearly can see that first of all, the longer description text is centered, and you never do that. There is no hover on the main menu. Yeah, centering like that, it just doesn't work. It's basically unreadable. And same with here. If you have longer text like that, it's practically unreadable, especially with that line spacing, and those cards themselves look a little bit like a cheap template. One of the photos is cut off on the side. Nobody noticed that because, well, obviously they only have a couple billion, not trillions. And then huge logos, misaligned fonts, no spacing, no good white space even. It's kind of like all really looking like a cheap WordPress template. Just kind of filled with content and that's it. There is no design here whatsoever. And this little bar at the bottom with the social media icons is looking completely out of place as well. What's also interesting is the inconsistencies in the logo, because in some cases their logo is actually using the same spacing between all the elements, but in most places there is a smaller spacing there on the left side, but this space doesn't really come out from any of the other values. It's not calculated by any means, it's just some random distance. And when you can't even do your own logo right, then well, I guess the answer here is pretty obvious.
So as you can see, the website is full of inconsistencies, chaotic font choices, misaligned elements, and all of that comes to the fact that it looks a little bit like a cheap WordPress template that was put together by the developer without a designer even being at the company. And this is not a startup, this is not an MVP, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. So when a company of that size decides to go with quality that low, this is an instant red flag for me. And of course, do your research on multiple levels, not just design. But when a company of that size and scale decides to take shortcuts on marketing and all the user-facing stuff, basically that kind of tells you a little bit about their approach to everything already, doesn't it? And when it comes to investing in exchanges, never invest more than you're willing to lose. And you know, there is one investment that is always going to bring you returns, and that is subscribing to this channel. So do that right now. And as always, have a beautiful day.